Thanks so much for staying with us. Now, setting clear personal boundaries is an important aspect of one's life. It ensures relationships are mutually respectful, supportive, and caring. So what exactly are boundaries, and how can we go about setting them? We've invited life and relationship coach Leah Sefor to help us out. It's probably one of the toughest things to do, but once you do it, you feel the freedom.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's go into what a boundary is.
It's very easy to see a boundary when it's a physical thing, like a fence or a door.
Walls.
But when it comes to emotions and your mental boundaries and your spiritual boundaries, invisible. And you have to teach people how to treat you. You've got to teach people how far they can go with you in terms of how they behave with you and how they speak to you.
Yeah.
So a boundary exists in two realms. We've got our internal boundaries with ourselves, and that really is how deeply we know ourselves, what our emotions are, what our truth is about ourselves, and how we communicate that to the world. We then have external boundaries, and that's what I was saying just now about our mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, material boundaries, which is really saying to somebody else, this is as far as you can go. This is what is safe. This is what is appropriate for me.
Yeah. Why do we struggle then? Because there's a huge cultural impact. You know, if I just think about ideas and notions of respect and exchanges between men and women, or someone older or younger than you, that's why I say it's not always that easy.
It's not easy, and if you consider that our upbringing creates the blueprint for how we're going to behave as adults, and if you actually look at how we are with children, they don't have any rights to boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, give your uncle a kiss, hello. You know, let your auntie give you a hug. You know, say hello to the person. And a lot of the time, kids don't want to do that stuff. They feel uncomfortable about their space or their body being touched, or about having to do something they don't want to do, and yet they don't have the right to say no.
Children should be seen and not heard.
Absolutely, and you will study what we tell you, and you will wear what we tell you, and your room will look the way we want it to look. And children mostly, I'm not generalizing, but mostly children are brought up understanding they don't have the right to dictate what happens in their own life. Only once you're legal, then you have the right to say what goes on. And this is the problem, because your fundamental belief systems are created in childhood. So you believe it's wrong to say no. You believe that it makes you a bad person if you don't want to help. So it breeds a whole, like you said, culturally and with gender, you know, where are my lines? Where am I allowed to end? And how far can I allow that other person to come into my space? Is it okay for adults to just speak to me any way they want because I am the child and they are the adult? So we do have this inherent respect your elders, you know, with children. On one hand, I totally understand that. On the other hand, does that mean an adult can just speak to you and behave with you any way they want, and you must respect them regardless? Yeah,
you don't want to rear an obnoxious child.
No.
One that's disrespectful and doesn't understand how to appropriately conduct themselves. But you also, again, don't want to rear a child that's fearful of speaking out, and that's where inappropriate behavior may be.
Absolutely,
you know,
and
may
that is the
occur.
concern.
Yeah, exactly.
So as parents, we do have a responsibility to teach our children that it is okay to say no.
How do we start? You know, and how do we recognize that perhaps in one area we don't have any boundaries?
So, you know, there's a lot of warning signs when boundaries are being violated. So when you're feeling uncomfortable in someone's space, or something has happened that makes you feel uneasy in your body is a huge indicator, your feelings, when something isn't okay. So you have to be able to stop and go, why am I feeling like this? What's going on that's making me feel uncomfortable?
That gut instinct.
Absolutely. The second thing is also understanding that your energy being drained all the time. When you feel exhausted when you've been in someone's space, or when someone's constantly asking you, and your first impulse is to want to say no, but you say yes. So you've got to really listen to your voice of what is true for you, and why are you ignoring that and saying yes to somebody else when you know it's going to cost you energy you don't have. So it becomes that those internal boundaries I was saying is where the work has to begin. Is know yourself, know who you are, know what is okay for you, what is right for you, what is wrong for you, and to teach the people in your life about that. You know, I know that in the past I may have said it's okay, but right now I'm not in that space anymore, and I'm changing my mind, and I'm telling you it's not okay anymore, or I want to say no, or I'm unavailable to help. And it's okay to say that stuff. You know, people just get racked with guilt when they think about putting a boundary in place.
How do you deal with the guilt? Because initially you're going to struggle. If it's, I mean, if if you're 40 years old and you're changing this thing, you've had 40 years of bad training, and now you want to change it and feel okay in a week. No, it's not going to happen.
Oh, no. And boundaries takes practice. Putting boundaries in place. Saying no is the hardest word for a lot of people. It takes a lot of practice to do that. So it's look at your current commitments that you have on your plate. And you are able to renegotiate those with people and say, maybe when I said yes, I was in a different place in my life, and stuff has changed, and I'm no longer able to give you that time or to give you that help or to lend you that money, and how can we find a solution that works for everybody? What I mean by works for everybody is understand that every time you are doing something for somebody else, it's disempowering them from doing it for themselves and learning how to find their way. And it becomes easy for them to ask you because you always say yes. And then they are not learning the lesson or finding the resource in their own life to find the solutions for themselves. So it's quite empowering to say to somebody else, this seems to be something you constantly struggle with. Maybe you should get help. Maybe you should look at how to find another way, because I won't always be here to say yes or to help you with this thing. So
you're doing it out of a place of love as well. It's not always easy, but it is out of a place of love, compassion for both parties as well. How do you do that at work? Sometimes it's easier for the personal boundaries to be set,
Well, in a way with work it is, because a contract is in place. And when a contract is in place, I was hired to do ABC. You keep asking me to do DEF. That was not in my original contract, nor is it what I was being paid to do. So you can always refer to the contract of employment in a workplace to say...
Okay. But what about, apart from the contract, what if it's about a boss that's like speaking to you a certain way, and you're doing your job and he's checking up on you, but it's that communication type of boundary? How do you set that?
Again, teaching people how to treat you. You have to have a meeting with your boss and say, this is how I like to be spoken to, and when you speak to me in this way, it makes me feel not okay or disrespected or not valued. And I feel that when I do a project or I commit to a deadline, I would like some acknowledgement, or I'd appreciate if that was noticed. So it's just teaching the person that you work with what they are doing that doesn't work for you, and how they could do it in another way that can get a result that works for you.
Now, I hear people saying, yes, Leah, this sounds so, on paper and in theory, it sounds great. But the next thing, I'll be left out of the circle, or, there'll be a target on my back, or the spotlight will be on me, and lest I slip up, I might end up getting a written warning for,
insubordination.
Yeah, something like that, or reasons that aren't as clear. There's that fear.
And that fear is what keeps people paralyzed from saying no. And I'm going to say, well, feel the fear and do it anyway. If you're going to be excluded from the circle, is it really a circle you want to be in the first place? And as long as you are doing your job and showing up, there wouldn't be a target on your back. And if you're handling it in a workable way, so you're not fighting, you're not gossiping about the person with everybody else in the office, you're going through the correct channels, through HR, saying, I've got an issue, can you support me to find a dialogue that can get a result? And at the end of the day, if it really is violating all of your boundaries,
do you want to be there?
Absolutely. Then you need to leave and find somewhere else to be.
What about this digital age that we live in, where it seems harder, everything is 24/7, 365. Where, what are you seeing in your line of work, and where people should start implementing certain boundaries, screen time?
You've got to understand that our perception of self is very much now linked into our social media presence. It is our identity. We're out there, and we need constant validation to assure ourselves of our place, and that we're okay, and that we're accepted by our tribe. So yes, it is not having things like Facebook on your phone. It is creating time in your day to look at social media, but then creating a life that doesn't exist around social media. When you are engaging with people, family, children, colleagues, have the respect to put your phone away and engage face to face. People are losing the ability to communicate because they don't know how to speak to each other anymore. So everything here gets done through WhatsApp or through a messaging app. With technology, it is out of control, and we have to have limits on that in the home environment. We don't have TVs in your bedroom. Don't bring your cell phones into a communal space. Switch off and learn to keep engaging with the people in your life. So, the other hand, it's also how much abuse we take online. People open themselves up to put on a post, and then there's the constant kind of attack and comments and judgment. And there is where boundaries also need to be put in line of it's not okay. And this is where my line is, and I appreciate your point of view, but, stop the attack.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, turn the comments off. You have that ability for to turn on off that feature. Okay, before I let you go, you want to help some people, so you've got an ebook available for them.
I do. I've got a free ebook. It's a workbook called The Freedom Factor.
Love it.
And it just gives you the space to look at where you are carrying too much stuff that's not your responsibility.
Okay.
How to let that go, and it gives you a whole working look at boundaries and how to set them in your life.
Oh, I'm the eldest in my family. I definitely know that I need to do that. We definitely carry a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
Leah, thanks so much for chatting to us.
Absolute pleasure.
Always good having you with us.